Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Greene County, about 2 miles west of Carrollton, in what we believe to be the oldest home in central Illinois, dating back to 1823 when Margaret Black built this house. And it's been in the same family for 188 years, and it's been continuously lived in for all those years. And one of the great-great-grandsons of Margaret, Stephen Black, is with us here, and he's one of the owners. You and your brother are the proud owners of this home that's been in the family all these years.
Yes, we are.
Fantastic.
Yes.
You know, it's a gorgeous home, and it's undergone a couple of facelifts over the years. But in 1823, your great-great-grandmother designed and had the brickwork done for this 4-bedroom home. Is it a 4-bedroom?
Yes,
home?
4 bedrooms, right.
And you're going to give us a chance to look through it, aren't you?
I sure am.
That's great.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Margaret. She must have been one heck of a strong woman to come over here from, was she Scottish? Is that what she was?
Well, she was English, and her husband was Scottish. But yeah, she must have been very strong. Actually, her husband died several years before she came over here. So she came here with 3 of her brothers and all of her children. Mm-hmm. So it really must have taken something to up and leave and come to a country like this, which would have been, you know, on the frontier at that point in time. So
in 1823, there was nothing out here.
No, there wasn't. Matter of fact, the county was just established in 1821. And by 1823, there were just a very few people that had moved to this area. So this was one of the first houses built. Yeah.
Let's walk a little closer, Steve, and we can get a better look at where the original brick home was built and where, of course, the add-on was added. Your family's been here since 1823, so your family did all the work that's been done on this house as well. If we look at the center part behind the pillars, that's the original brick house.
Yes, it is. Yeah, all the brick house was kind of a rectangular house. It's called a federal-style house. Mm-hmm. It's got a central hallway, which we'll see later, and 2 rooms on each side, downstairs and upstairs. Mm-hmm. And all the walls were brick. The inside walls are brick, and the outside walls are brick.
And in 1856, that's when it underwent its redesign, and the woodwork was added to it, huh?
Yes. The road actually was not on this side of the house back then. The house faced to the east, and that was the front. And we figured that when they put the road in here in about the 1850s, then they changed the back of the house and made it the front, and they added all this woodwork, the porches and the carriage house and the wash house and some of that we'll look at later. But yes, that was all done in 1856.
Okay, so the road goes in, and your grandfather, great-grandfather, one of the others says, "Gee whiz, now we're facing the wrong way. Let's put the front of the house on the back of the house."
I think that's what they had to do.
It's hilarious. What a bad break.
Yes.
But they did a nice job. It's very appealing.
And by then, it was my great-grandfather, because Margaret Black, who built the house, she died in 1854. So my great-grandfather did these revisions after that, and some of us think that he may have done that because she was now gone and he had the flexibility to make some adjustments to the house, and he decided to do it.
Yeah, okay.
But the fact that the road changed did have a big bearing on it.
Sure. Let's go to the back of the house and take a look. Okay, now Steve, we're behind the house now.
Yes.
But as we explained, this was the front of the house, and you get a good look at what the house would have looked like, except for the porch that got built on in later years.
Yes, this was the original front, and you can't see the doorway. We'll see that when we go inside. It's kind of a decorative entrance that would have been the original front, and I think there was a little small porch originally. But this would have been the original front with just the brick that was there without the porch being there. And you can't really see it as well now with that porch there, but it was very distinctive when it was built.
You know, it's interesting because she had a contract with the construction guy who was going to dig the bricks, make the bricks, put the bricks up. Per brick, she had a charge per brick, and you still have the contract. Yes. We're going to get a chance to see that, aren't we?
Well, my brother has the original, but the one in the house is a reproduction of it, and yeah, we'll take a look at that, but it's interesting that it was $6.50 per 1,000 bricks, and he had to make the bricks and build a house, and
wow.
Yeah, that is amazing But apparently the bricks were made here on site, which was typical. They would use the soil that had a lot of clay in it, and they just would dig and fire the bricks right here.
Before we go in and look at the entry to the door that you were talking about and the contract and all that, I want to see this smokehouse because this was added in the 1865,
Right.
and it gives us a good idea about how they preserve their meat.
Yes.
Let's take a look. Well, Steve, in 1823, and of course even much later than that, in 1865, when the smokehouse was built, you did everything yourself on a farm.
Yes, you did. Yeah, they had to be pretty self-sustaining back then.
Yeah. This is interesting. I bet you get a lot of comments because it's this tall, what's that tall brick building on your property? Is that what people call it?
We do get some comments. Some people think it's a kitchen, or some people even thought it was a playhouse. And but I tell them, no, it's a smokehouse. It was built in 1865 based on the records that we have. And they've used it for years and years, although in my lifetime it hadn't been used, but I know, 100 years ago or beyond, they use it a lot.
Maybe it's time for you to start using it again. Huh?
Might
Let's take
be.
a look in there. A lot of space in here. I assume they would have built the fire here in the middle of the floor.
From what we understand, yeah, the fire would be there'd been a pit or some type of a circular area for the fire, and then up above, there's a lot of meat hooks up there, or hooks, and they would hang their meats on those, let them hang down so they didn't touch each other, from what I understand. And then the smoke from the fire would basically cure these meats over a certain period of time.
And there's an opening at the top to let the air, let some air through. And a lot of soot. A lot of soot up there. You can say they used it a lot, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Yeah, a lot of soot up there. And they had to use a green wood. They didn't use dry wood. They used a greener wood so it put out more smoke, because it was the smoke and the reaction with the meat is what preserved it. But it's been used a lot over the years.
Well, Steve, let's make sure I got this right now. In 1856, when they added the woodwork to the house, they added this wash house.
Yes.
Okay. And where we're standing, they also added a carriage house.
Yes.
And it got later moved.
Yes.
Okay. So where we are, looking at that carriage house over there, and that's also a woodshed, by the way.
Yes.
That spread all the way out here from the wash house.
Right.
I'll be doggone.
Yeah, they had that. They would store their wood in there. Of course, obviously they needed wood to heat the house, and there's 6 fireplaces in there, which we'll see later. But in their carriages, and they could bring their carriages around and put them inside those open bays, and then they could walk from there through this part right into the office, into
right
the house,
into the wash house,
into the wash house, and on in. Right.
Yeah.
So that was moved in 1909 from here over to that location, and I'm not sure why, but I think it was probably to give a little better view of the road and in the front of the house.
And the wash house is interesting because you really kind of get an idea of the way people lived.
Yes.
Can we go in there?
Yes, we can.
Let's go in. Okay, the wash house. Wash up from your chores before you go in. There's a pump and a cistern down there. But this is the interesting feature right here, because you're sure that this was here when the wash house was built.
Yes, we're pretty sure of that. This, of course, that was a function of the house, was to, as a wash house, they needed a place to heat the water. So this was built, you build a fire in underneath there, and then we've got a pretty large iron kettle that they fill that with water and then heat their water and use that for washing or for hot water in the house or whatever. I guess they could have also used it for if they needed to melt down any kind of lard or fat or something like that, you could have done that out here too. So I'm sure this was a fairly busy place for a number of days back years ago.
Well, Steve, moments ago when we were in the backyard, we were talking about how it used to be the front of the house.
Right.
And now we're in the main hall of the house looking toward the back. And we can see what the main front entrance originally looked like. Because that's what the main entrance had, was like a fan. You call that a fan?
It's a fan light.
Fan light.
Right.
Okay.
That was kind of a distinctive architectural feature of that era for the front of a house, would be to have that kind of a decorative fan light over the top. So I doubt the glass was there originally. They probably had a different kind of door than that. But yes, that was the original front of the house, and now, of course, it's the back.
And of course, that porch wasn't there. That was built on later.
Right.
This house consists of a large hall.
Yes.
And 4 rooms on the bottom, roughly symmetrical. 4 rooms on the top,
Yes.
roughly symmetrical. And that's it.
That's it. That was typical of what they call a federal style house. We had
Uh-huh.
the central hall and the rooms just as you described them. Right.
And Mrs. Black, Margaret Black, when she came over from England, hauled this all the way over with her. This came with
Yes.
her. It's precious.
Yes, that's a sugar chest. And they'd keep sugar, flour, other things in there that they didn't want rodents or whatever to be able to get, or insects to get to it. So
Wow.
yeah, she brought that across on a ship and then on wagons, and it's been in the house ever since.
That must have been very important to her because she only brought a few things, right?
Yes. Of course, there's this chest upstairs that we'll look at later, which obviously we call it a blanket chest, but it would have allowed you to, like a huge trunk, you could have transported a lot of stuff in there too, and it's still upstairs also.
Okay, we'll take a look at it. Now, since most of these rooms are roughly the same, let's go into this one. This would have been the dining room, I assume, because it's
assume it
near
would
the
have been,
kitchen.
yes.
I love these fireplaces. Look at the size of these fireplaces, and almost every room had one.
Yes, they did. There's 4 of them down here. One of them has been closed in because when the furnace was put in many years ago, they had to use it for that. But of course, the doors were put on by my parents probably 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But up until that, they didn't have any doors on them. I have been here at times when we'd have 3 of those fireplaces running, and you wouldn't believe how that would keep this house warm.
I'll bet.
It was amazing.
I'll bet. Yeah, they knew what they were doing.
They sure did.
Now, now we talked about Margaret, your great-great-grandmother, several times. She looks like she worked hard. She was a hard worker, wasn't she?
She does look like that in that picture.
And she came over with a party of 22
people from England.
In
had
1822.
Several of her brothers and their families, and they bought a lot of land right around this area.
And this is great. This is a look at what the back of the house originally looked like, and we just saw the front door, of course. It says this place was settled in 1819.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Yeah, it's a
it was
little
actually
early.
1823.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But yes, that's what the original front of the house would have looked like.
And this is another really good look at it right here.
Now, that picture we think is around 1888 because this is my great-grandfather, and great-grandmother, and my grandfather, I think, is the younger boy right here. So that would have been taken around in the late 1880s.
And we were talking about how the carriage house was detached from the wash house. And this actually looks like they may be taking it apart right here because there's a bunch of workmen there, and it looks like they're going to take it down and move it.
Yeah, that was I found that picture just a couple years ago, and because I had never seen that attached to the house before, so it was very interesting to me. But yeah, those are the workmen taking it down.
And we promised we would show this too, and we asked you to get this out for it. This is a copy of the contract that your great-great-grandmother drew up with the contractor. And point out on here some of the.
Well, the unique stuff, of course, this was the 19th day of April in 1823, and she entered into this with a fellow named William Ray. He was the bricklayer, and it was between him and Margaret Black. Actually, they said she was from Mount Pleasant, which was a little community right over here that doesn't exist anymore, and that's where she lived before they got the house built. And then down in here, it talks about how when they were going to build this. That he had to make the bricks and build a house, and it was at a rate of $6.50 per thousand, and that would cover all of his expenses. And what they were going to do is, when he was done, they were going to measure the volume, the length and width and depth of all the walls, and then calculate how many bricks, and then pay him based on that.
$6.50 per thousand.
$6.50 per thousand. But there's a lot of
bricks.
Have you
ever calculated the cost of the house?
Well, we had some records that said it was close to $3,000, and there was like $300 worth of wood, and I guess the rest of it was brick cost.
Wow, that would have been a fortune then.
Back in that time, especially when the land only cost $1.25 an acre, to build a house of this size was something in that period.
Yeah. 188-year-old plank floors.
Yes, they are. These are the originals.
And the whole house had this kind of flooring in it originally.
They probably did originally.
Yeah.
Some of the downstairs have been replaced.
We ended up right here too, and we talked about her the 2 items that she brought with her: the sugar chest and this is a blanket chest.
Blanket chest, right. Yeah, this was one of the original pieces that she brought over on the ship and on the wagons, and it's been in the house ever since. obviously it served its purpose in being able to just, contain things while they got it over here, but we just call it a blanket chest, but it's quite unique.
Wow, 188 years sitting in this house.
Yes.
And this is, we'll go in one of these rooms because, like you said, all 4 bedrooms are the same, so we won't visit all of them, but this was pretty darn good sleeping quarters.
Well, it certainly was, and it's a really nice sized room, and all of them are about the same size. Had a fireplace in it, so when they get up in the morning, they could get themselves a little bit of heat.
Yep.
So this was, would have really been quite a place in that era when a lot of people were living in log cabins. I mean, this would have been quite upscale.
Yeah, and in fact, Margaret lived in a log cabin for a year while she was building this place, didn't she?
And there's some early records where she was really remarking about how she needed to get a house built because she was tired of living in a log cabin. So
she didn't waste much time.
That's right. They got it pretty quick.
The Black Homestead farmhouse was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2005. When this was built in 1823, there wasn't much going on in Carrollton. But one of the oldest houses there was probably being planned at the time. Let's go down there and take a look. Okay, Steve, your great-great-grandmother has already been living in her new brick home for about 7 years before here on the square in Carrollton, one of the really early brick homes is being built.
I think that's right.
Yeah. You have an attachment to this building too. This is a beauty.
Well, I'm involved in the Historical Society here, and this is where our museum and library and research area is, and we've had this building for 30 plus years, and it's really been an asset to us. We've spent a lot of time and effort over the last few years trying to renovate the inside of it, which we'll look at a little later.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of work done to try to expand the museum and to also equip our research library for those who are doing genealogical research. So we feel pretty proud that we've been able to accomplish what we've done over the last few years.
It's beautiful. This is the Lee Baker Hodges house.
Yes.
Because it was lived in by those 3 families prior to the Historical Society getting a hold of it. And actually one of those families, the Baker family, has an interesting past, don't they?
Yes, the Baker, Edward Baker lived here and for a short period of time, and then he moved on, but he was a very close friend of Abraham Lincoln. And it's my understanding that Lincoln actually named one of his children after Edward Baker. So they were very close, and that's the connection that this house has with Abraham Lincoln.
Well, you said that it now houses the Historical Society Museum, so let's go in and take a little look. Okay. Well, Stephen, in this old house, the kitchen probably would have been toward the back. And we're in the back, and what very well may have been the kitchen, we assume was the kitchen. And what you have here is you've rebuilt a themed kitchen from the old days.
Yes, we tried to make this as best we could, what an old kitchen might look like. And obviously there's some other things in here that don't fit that theme. But everything in here has been donated to us. And as you say, we're trying to make it look like a kitchen of middle 1800s.
And talk about donating. Interestingly, the building itself was donated to the Historical Society.
Yes, it was. The building in the middle 1970s was, I believe, scheduled for somebody to maybe destroy it. And the Greene County National Bank at the time purchased the building and then donated it to the Greene County Historical Society. So that we were very fortunate to be able to get that. And then obviously do some renovations and be able to get to where we are today.
You like to be able to use as much local flavor as you can, and now I'm looking at this wood stove here, this cook stove. This was made by a fellow, the Scott Company in Carrollton, Illinois. I guess they made a few of these, didn't they?
Yes, they did. I think we have another one in another room, and I don't know a lot about the details of it, but obviously it was made here in Carrollton.
I'd like to fire it up. It'd be good to keep that thing fired. Warm this place up a little bit. When you guys got this 35 years ago, this building, I assume that it's taken a lot, because not only did you have to move your museum items in here, but this needed a lot of work and continues to need a lot of work, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And a lot of that was done before I became involved in the society, but other folks were involved in doing the roof and the brickwork renovations. All the heating and air conditioning had to be installed. All the electrical had to be redone. the floors, and in the last few years we've kind of put some of the final touches on it by renovating the walls and the ceilings to where we can now use them for museum exhibits.
Yeah.
But a lot of work has gone into this over the last 20, 30 years.
It is beautiful. When you think of 1830s, a long time ago, and those kind of the buildings that old just need constant maintenance.
Yes, they do. There's always something to be done.
Let's go see some more.
Okay.
Well, Steve, it looks like the banks in Greene County have been very good to you.
I think they have, yes.
One of them donated the building, and
Well,
now
that's
you've
right.
got a themed room, a bank,
Yes, we do.
an old bank room.
Yeah, we had kind of been hoping for this over the last few years to be able to create this, and it's all come together. The Whitehall Bank gave us the old teller cages, and the Cornerstone Bank, which was the Greene County National Bank, it gave us some pictures over here and some old bank ledger books. The Carrollton Bank gave us a number of different items in here, some money bags, an old calculator, some furniture. So, and then the last one was the State Bank of Eldred. We got an stuffed eagle, which had been in their bank for 100 years down there, and they were very glad that we were able to have it up here and continue to display it. So, yeah, the banks have been very helpful in helping us create this exhibit.
Yeah, I like this over here because it gives you an idea of the kind of ledgers they used to keep.
Yeah.
Now, of course, everything's electronic.
Yes.
You know, you would never see this kind of stuff. But these big, heavy books like this, these were very commonplace, weren't they?
Well, they were. I mean, all of their transactions were manually recorded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and had to keep them forever because you're talking about, in many cases, 30-year loans.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
And then, of course, look, the market. They would keep track of the market, the livestock markets in the bank, of course, place that would change every day, market price.
Right.
Interesting. Well, Steve, most of these rooms have a theme, and we're in the room that your historical society meets has the theme of maybe one of the most famous men from Greene County ever.
Well, he's pretty well known around here. Yes, Henry Rainey. Henry Rainey was an attorney here for years, but Henry was the Speaker of the House of Representatives back in the early 1930s when Franklin Roosevelt was elected president.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's quite unique to have a Speaker of the House from Carrollton.
It sure is. It sure is. And of course, you got a lot of photographs of his home and where he grew up and everything. But
yes.
I particularly like this item here because this is apparently the gavel that he used as Speaker of the House.
Yes, it is. That's one of the mementos that we have, as you mentioned, along with a lot of pictures and other things of his. He lived in a house called Walnut Hall, which is just east of Carrollton.
There may still be people alive in Greene County who remember when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt came to Carrollton for his funeral.
Well, there could be, and it was in, 1934 is when he died. I remember my mother telling me about going down to the railroad station and watching the president come in and getting in his car and then going to the funeral services. But there could be some people around today that were alive at that point.
They could remember that. And this newspaper here recounts that day, and of course it was a huge headline, and made more so by the fact that he died very unexpectedly.
Yes,
I guess.
Yes. And as this would probably point out in there were thousands of people that came to town. It was probably one of the biggest events that this town had ever seen.
And if not for him to see the President of the United States, because how often does he come to Central Illinois?
That's right.
Not very darn often. This also tells you sort of this shows the extent of the mourning and the attention that his funeral got.
Yes.
Fascinating. The Greene County Historical Society Museum is open Wednesdays and Fridays from 9 to 3 or by special appointment. With another Illinois story in Carrollton, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.